Let me get my headphones, man. Hold on. And welcome to another exciting episode of The Energy That Surrounds Us. I'm your host, Michael, joined with me by my co host, Michelle.
Hey guys.
And tonight we have a very cool episode with you as we have with us the amazing Joshua Lewis.
Hey guys,
Hey
thanks for
Joshua.
having me on.
Oh
Yes,
yeah.
thank you for coming on. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I've had kind of a hectic day, but I'm here and ready to talk. So always ready to talk about what
Well,
I
we're
love.
have you here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for those who may not be familiar with you and your work, would you like to give them a brief introduction to yourself?
Yeah. I started doing what I've been doing, I guess, around 11 years ago. I started kind of as a paranormal investigator doing some residential cases, and I worked with some other teams that kind of I shadowed in and was able to learn a lot from some of these um, people that had been doing it a long time, and it was really great. And still friends with them today. And then I realized with my partner Nikki, we together were out, doing different, like I said, residential stuff, and also things in like cemeteries, normal kind of going out with the gear and picking up EVP and everything. Um, I started picking up stuff on my own intuitively. So did my partner. She started getting stuff, and I started working with a teacher. Her name is Deborah Lynn Katz. She has this amazing school called the International School of Clairvoyance, and I started working with her on developing my intuitive abilities, and I became one of her. I don't say best students, but I became a really good student of hers, I should say. And fast forward to today. Now I've done over 3,000 mediumship readings. I've done many different, over like 500 box sessions to help people connect with their loved ones. Written a book, created some apps and programs, held some live events. So I post to my channel, Hope Paranormal. So it's been an amazing journey so far.
That is really cool. So, what was your favorite paranormal experience?
Well, there's been a lot. As far as my favorite, I don't know if I have. I mean, I have some sessions that I do. I mean, in addition to being a trained medium now who's done a lot of different readings for people, and it's been the stuff that's come through in these readings have been so powerful. But I do these focused box sessions, and I've worked with the Bigelow Institute of Consciousness Studies. I've worked with I spoke at a conference just recently. The International Remote Viewing Association had a conference they put on with the Monroe Institute, and I got to speak in front of them and share a lot of the instrumental transcommunication work. That's really, in addition to the intuitive stuff that I do, it's really advanced ITC that I'm working on. So some of the sessions I've done are just, they're just so powerful. As far as being in an investigation, I mean, there's been some really amazing things that have happened. I mean, early on, it was some scary stuff kind of at times, but I don't encounter that stuff as much anymore. Now it's a lot of the stuff that I encounter is all very positive communication, positive experiences. It's very rare that I get anything negative now.
Right.
Yeah.
So I caught some of your H.O.P.E, your seminars and stuff on YouTube briefly today. I really enjoyed them. You mentioned a whole bunch of people like Tesla,
Right.
Benjamin Franklin, things like that. So how did you go down that rabbit hole to start seeing all of these geniuses who we don't even know them for that world? We know them together.
It's true. Well, I call them the forefathers of ITC, and ITC has been around for well over 100 years now, since those guys have been working on stuff. And I mentioned Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla. There's Frederick Jurgensen, who was a filmmaker, and he had a recorder, a regular voice recorder, sitting on his windowsill that he was recording additional sound for a film. And when he went back to review it, he heard voices on the voice recorder. So he dove into instrumental transcommunication. You've got Konstantin Radovan, a brilliant Latvian psychologist and scientist, and he states, and I mentioned that in that talk, that ITC is no hobby for people that are just interested. It's a very serious study, and it should be taken seriously.
Yeah.
And then of course there's Frank Sumption, who is the guy that created the first radio spirit box that skips through radio stations. And of course, Gary Galko created the PSB7, which so many paranormal investigators have. It's kind of like a staple in your box to have. But really, Frank Sumption was the guy that kind of created that stuff originally, kind of inspired probably from some of those other guys like Edison and Tesla. Right. And, it's there. The problem is that, mainstream science is still kind of slow on accepting it or picking it up. It is being studied more, but it's because it's still very exploratory and interpretational. And so we're trying to get it so that it's not just what you think you're hearing. It's that we're trying to get some definitive answers. We get yes and no's. We get I'm here and confirmation of names and things like that. But I'm able to pick up some really longer and powerful messages. And, I always joke around too. There's two responses, two reactions to my work when people see it. It's either, holy crap, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life, or holy crap, this kid is the biggest faker I've ever seen. Right. And I get it,
Yeah. Oh yeah. Now explain to me, I caught the gentleman who made, he's passed away now, that made that box. You actually have one.
Yeah, Frank Sumption.
Right. Now, is he the same one that took the receiver out of the radio?
No.
Is that a different man?
That's Bocci, Marcello Bocci. He's an Italian man, that he did some great work. Again, I mentioned him in my talk, that he kind of liked to stay out of the limelight, which is totally cool. But he was very forthright with his work. He was willing to let other investigators come in and witness his work and try to cross-examine it. And that's really the greatest thing ever. I mean, you want people to do that. And that's what I welcome with my work. And I have had that happen. And that's why I did with Bix. And it was really great. I did it with a couple other people. But yeah, Marcello Bacci took out the transistor out of the out of the radio, and it would not allow for any radio stations to be picked up. So you're really just getting this shh sound, and what would happen after a few minutes of him, he had a team on the other side, as well, as crazy as that seems. And I have the same thing. I have amazing souls that work with me on the other side. I don't always know exactly who they are. I know names, and I just call on the whole team, and whoever decides to show up, shows up. But they're experienced and they know what they're doing. And so he had those, and you would hear after a few minutes that sound would start to kind of turn into like a portal. And then these voices would start to come through. And there were reporters there. He would help a lot of grieving parents reach their children. And I've done that too. I've done a lot of parents that have lost their children to either, as young as someone that's died of cancer, to suicide, to OD, a lot of car accidents. I mean, there's a number of different things. And, they all, well, let me put it this way. I say they all come through, but I also say that there's really no way for me to know 100% that who I am reaching is the person that I'm supposed to be reaching. Right. I don't think any ITC box worker or communicator can say that 100%. I will say this, that I'm not just turning on my stuff and saying, hello, who's there? Can you come through? I'm intuitively connecting first.
Exactly.
And I have to see them in my mind. I have to feel them. I have to connect with them as if I was doing a mediumship reading.
Right.
And when I feel that there's a connection made, that's when I'll turn on the box or my equipment. Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, that's really the best way to do it. You need that raw before you have the backup. The machinery should always just be in addition to the natural feeling. I like to go in with me or with my partner. I like to go in early. I don't even care what time of the day it is. Like, I don't necessarily, for me, it doesn't matter if it's 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock, or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It doesn't matter to me. And I always like to go in initially and do it. Do you find yourself before you even get there kind of knowing what's going to happen when you get there, like, 10, 15 minutes before you get there?
I used to. Nowadays, I do these events. And when I do an event, I'm really trying to also manage the people and trying to make sure that everything is set up. So sometimes there's a little bit more of a hectic nature at first. So it's not like I'm walking in the way that I think you just described. I used to feel that way. I do my communication, though. The majority of what I do now is really from home. And some people might say, well, that's crazy. Why would you do sessions in your home? I've been doing it for a decade. And I live I am a normal guy. I get frustrated and angry, and I'm not perfect. I don't claim I've dropped all fear and I'm just some holier than thou guy. I don't act like that. But I do meditate every day. I turn my life over to my higher power every day. I trust in God, and I have a spiritual connection that I rely on. And I do my communication mostly from home, and I do a lot of it during the day, a lot at night too. But I do, most of my box sessions with loved ones. I mean, that's all. I only do those in the afternoon. Right. And so it's not really like a night thing. I only do mine at night sometimes because my kids are asleep and I'm finally not going to be bothered by anyone. That's really the reason for that. But once I start walking in, I'm not Teresa Caputo, so I don't walk around in the supermarket and just start picking up things. I can kind of shut it off.
Really?
So I have to tune in. And once I tune in, I know I know enough now, been doing this a long time now, enough that I feel like I just have to trust what I'm getting. It doesn't always mean it's right, but a lot of it does get confirmed through either if I'm reading someone, then it's going to get confirmed through them, or if I'm doing a session and I'm saying, oh, I see you doing this or wearing this, and you're sitting down here and you just showed me something. If I say that, because that just came through me,
Right.
then I find that when I turn on the box and ask, say, did you just do that? They'll say, yes, I'm doing that or something. So a lot of times that's confirming what's going on.
So did you learn how to turn it off or shut it off? Because I know for a lot of us, that's really hard. Like me, grocery store or whatever, going to the movies. If I'm around humans, I'm gonna get something. Did you learn that at the Institute, or did you just learn how to do that after time?
I mean, she taught me how to tune in and tap in. I will sometimes just pick up something. I will have a spirit just come to me and talk to me sometimes. It's not as common as maybe, I guess, like what you're saying, that it may happen to you or maybe one of those other psychic mediums. But yeah, I mean, the fact is I didn't get my ability until I was about 32, 33, or I didn't know of it. So again, yeah, I wasn't like a baby, a 5-year-old getting, seeing things and all that. Like, this came to me, I believe, from my higher power in a way. And I say, and that's for me, that's Jesus Christ. But I believe that came about because of I mean, who knows? Maybe I was always destined to do this work. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I can't say it was by chance, but I think that because I showed a lot of initiative and interest and I wanted to help, I believe that that's what happened, that it was awoken within me, or whatever you want to call it, or heightened.
Right.
So I don't think that it's like, I think people that have had it from a younger age, or grew up with it, I think that they're the ones like yourself that talk about that they don't have, they just get it, it just comes to them more, as opposed to someone like maybe me, that I have to do my focusing to get the information.
So what drew you to that path in the paranormal, of wanting to do that ability and go and do the work to turn, to activate it and everything?
Well, I mean, I have my thing. It's H.O.P.E, which is really an acronym for Helpers of Paranormal Entities. So when I was doing these sessions, not even sessions, and just kind of these loose investigations in cemeteries, in abandoned buildings, not so much even the residential stuff, because that came a little bit later after I kind of was more trained in how to do that. But when I was just taking out my recorders and my flashlights and my PSB7s to a cemetery, I was capturing a lot of responses with my name and their names, but also them saying, help, we're looking for the light, or we're looking for help, So I didn't think that I was going to just start crossing spirit over. But I knew that, what power do I have? And I thought that the only power I had, because I had a spiritual connection with my higher power, I thought I can just pray for them. That's the biggest thing that I could do. And if it was meant that they were supposed to go somewhere or get some kind of light, then they would. And I would always tell them, you need to ask with me. It's not just me praying for you. You need to kind of recite what I'm saying, or you need to ask for, whether it's God or Jesus or, whatever your understanding of God is, then you need to do that. And they would do that. Or I would do that, and then I would trust that they were doing that. And then I would turn my equipment back on in the cemeteries or the buildings, and you would hear them saying, thank you. We feel it. We're getting, we see the light, things like that. So then I was like, wow. So it's not just like I can pick up information. I also can actually help in some way.
Right.
So that was what really got me going. Well, hey, you need to do more in understanding it. So when I started picking up stuff on my own, and Nikki started picking up things on her own, that's when, I was like, I mean, she never did. She was just really kind of naturally, good at it on her own. But I wanted to go further. And that's why I worked with that woman, Deborah, because she taught me a lot of, not, I don't say exercises. Some of them were exercises, but a lot of technique on, how to connect. Like, for one is, when I'm going to connect with someone, and someone like a loved one that someone's asking me to connect with, at first I might, and there's a number of different things I might try, but one of them is envisioning a flower, like a rose, a white rose, and taking the person's name, the loved one's name on the other side, and dropping it into the rose. And what would happen is that rose starts to take on that energy of that person. And I don't have to read the rose the whole time, but it's a great initiator, something to kind of get it going, maybe. And
like
so
a
there's
conduit.
yeah, like a conduit. It's just like, I think it's like a canvas with paint that gets put on it, and it just kind of starts it. Then after I start doing that, and that's one, there's a couple other things that I like to do, like even envisioning just a blank person and putting their, or just looking and going through my third eye, and kind of, I go to this room, I call it in my sessions, like I have this astral room. In fact, I could actually show you something really quickly. I have something, hold on.
Sure. So, for those of you watching us or listening to us on the radio, we are getting an image from him. So you'll have to
This is really cool, because I did this to show someone that asked me one time, for like my patrons and members. They asked me, like, well, what are you seeing, and what should we be looking at? Or my book fell. What should we be looking at, when we're doing this? And I said, this is something that, so in order for me to kind of prepare myself, I have to ground myself before every session. I do a grounding, and then I call in earth energy into my body. I call down the light, and I really see that conduit kind of, or that flow of energy kind of flow. And so I kind of have that as an example. Like, if these are very, like, preschool.
A picture of what is that, a chakra? What is
so it's like a person, it's me really sitting in like my chair.
Okay.
And those are the 7 chakras. And so I drop a grounding cord. That's not me like taking a dump or anything. That's like that's a grounding cord that's extending into the earth. And then I'm calling in earth energy in through my feet chakras, and I'm calling down the light through my crown chakra.
Right.
And I envision my body being filled with this light energy. And that really grounds me, and that prepares me. And then I envision like an eye in my, I go into like my headspace, and I could see this like a window. Like I become smaller in my headspace. It's like a cool bat cave kind of like place.
Right.
And there's a window right there, and I get to push that window open. And right outside that window is a plexiglass platform that leads to an astral room.
Okay.
And that's where I do my spirit communication.
Okay.
And so this is kind of the view outside my forehead.
So it's like a pathway.
It's like in space, like a plexiglass, platform that will lead to this floating room.
Okay.
Okay. So then I would walk across. Sorry?
I was just explaining, because we're on the radio also.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, gotcha.
Pathway to it's plexiglass into a building, and that's his room that he gets ready in his head.
Right.
So I'll walk across that plexiglass to the floating room, and then when I get inside that room, I'll open the door, and I might see like 2 of my guides there.
Couple of energy beings and a table and chair, perhaps like a room set up so that y'all can have a meeting.
Right. And then across from the room, or the door that I came in, there's another door that leads to the other side of the astral room, I guess. I don't know. And that's where a spirit can come in and sit with me at the table. a lot of times when I walk in, my guides are kind of like, they're always like, they're there waiting for me to help and assist with.
So a metaphysical meeting room.
Yep, that's exactly right. A metaphysical room. And a lot of times when I'm in that room and there might be multiple spirit I'm communicating with, or one, if I'm going to pray for them, a lot of times I'll pray for them, and I'll ask for the light to come down to kind of energize all of us. And so then I kind of can show that there's, like I'm this person,
Okay.
and I'm envisioning, and I'm envisioning the light coming down through me and also shining onto the other souls in the room. There might be an angel present that I might see. And so
it kind of is almost like if you were looking into a church in the morning when the sun is coming through the light.
Yeah.
Windows at the top onto the patrons of the place, filling them with spirit or light or energy. So that's kind of the
Yeah.
So again, for those that are listening on the radio, you can always watch us in replay when you're able to on YouTube, and you can see the drawings.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And the first picture that we really didn't describe very well on our end is it was a light being, which would be Joshua, who had the chakra images. He was sitting in a chair, very focused, very still, and that was the first picture. So
yeah, to ground, I mean, anyone can do a grounding by like even going outside and just take your shoes off and stand in the grass and touch a tree, and you can kind of envision. I like to just sit back straight and just sit, and have my spine. It's all about the spine. I find that, that's what I've been taught, that the spine is kind of like the way of the Lord in a way, like in a sense. It's like, everything is distributed through, like, energy wise, through the spine out into the nerves. And so it's a highway of energy.
Yeah, I find a good way to dump energy after I've had a strong interaction with a spirit. I've already located dirt prior to, or I bring it blessed, or I'll bring a grounding rod with a wire to go to it if I think the ground might be too dirty, or there's no dirt because it's concrete, something like that. So I understand the grounding. I think a lot of us understand the grounding with needing to get to it. I didn't even know it existed. A bad experience, got trapped in a room, and my first instinct was just, I probably would have stripped completely naked if I could have, but I just managed to get my shoes off before I managed out the door and just right into the dirt. And then it was just like water flushing out of me.
Right.
All that negative, that spirit and fear and everything back into the ground. And it was just wonderful. I think more people should utilize grounding. I don't think it's pushed enough.
Not only that, I mean, I tell people, so like if you get a reading from me or a box session, or, I do group sessions for patrons that, can't afford to do a private session. So I allow the patrons to pay $25 a month or $50 a month to do you can cancel whenever, but, it gives everyone a chance to be able to do a session with me. And I send I send a guided 15-minute meditation video of me guiding you through it for everyone to do prior to a session with me.
Oh, that's
and so the first part of it is, the first 7 minutes is a grounding. And then the second part is a visualization of your loved one. And what people don't realize is that a lot of this work is done for me, and it's effective when other people do it. Is by imagining, by visualizing a lot of things happening. So like, if I envision that cord going down into the ground, that cord is there. If I imagine or envision, you should say, that flow of energy leaving my body, that is of energy that I don't want to deal with, or I don't think is good energy for me, or residual energy, it is leaving my body. And so when I tell someone, I want you to go into that astral room, and I want you to envision, call your loved one, tell them you want to meet them there. Right. And then you're going to open the door and envision them, seeing them there. And some of them will say, well, how do I know it's them? And how do I know that it's really them and it's not just me imagining it? And I say, it doesn't matter. I understand that you don't know for sure if they're actually there yet. but by you envisioning their face and seeing them and talking to them, it's like you're placing a spirit cell phone call to them.
Exactly.
And so then, you could still talk to them even if they don't show up physically in your space yet.
Right.
You still have that telepathic ability, but most of the time they will just show up. And so the envisioning imagination is a big part of what I do.
That's interesting. I haven't used that technique yet, but I might try.
Yeah.
It makes sense. I mean, we're all connected. I mean, honestly, we're all telepathically connected. I mean, we
Right.
just don't use that part of our brain. We've dumbed it out or chemicaled it out or ate the wrong food and blocked it. We're not totally sure. And it could be something different from each one of us. But, that's a really neat thing to start
That's
doing.
interesting you say that, because someone just posted an article in this Facebook group called Project Consciousness, and some study was done over 33 people, amongst 33 people, about how paranormal people that believe in the paranormal have less brain activity than a skeptic. And I think that they were trying to take a dig at
Yeah.
the people that believed in paranormal, right? So I read the article and I wanted to see what they were saying, and they were saying that there was more prefrontal cortex activity, more brain activity from the EEG that was showing in the skeptic, in the prefrontal cortex, which is more of language and critical thinking, I guess you could say. But so in the paranormal believers, there wasn't as much, and there was more right brain dominant in that side. Now, what's interesting about that, and not to get too heady here, is that there is, so there's a megalithic structure called the Maltese Hypogeum.
Right.
It's in Malta, and it's built underground, and it's ancient, 3500 BC.
Right.
And there was a group of scientists that studied that site and a number of other megalithic ancient sites. And what they found was that it resonates at 100, between 110 and 112, primarily at 111 hertz,
Okay.
which is actually the frequency. It sounds like of a man.
Right.
A man's voice. And what's interesting is that the 111 is also known as the holy frequency.
Okay.
And those scientists that study that ancient acoustics there, at those sites, they studied that frequency on 33 or 30 individuals to see what would happen on the EEG, on the brain scan. And what they found is that brain activity left the front prefrontal cortex and moved over to right side brain dominance.
Oh.
The right side is what's responsible for imagination, creativity,
Right.
awareness, and intuition.
Right.
So that means that that site was there to resonate in that chamber. They have a chamber there, and it was to resonate, to help get you from that more critical, logical thinking that kind of keeps us in this world, to get you into more of a meditative state so that you can connect.
Exactly.
So that article, I guess, was whether trying to take a dig at paranormal people, really proves that that's exactly what we want it to do. Not all the time, maybe, right? We don't want to lose our critical thinking and be able to not speak. But the fact is that we want to be able to tune in and tap into that side, and that's the right side. And that's why, so that's what the 111 was doing. And even in cymatics, cymatics is the study of vibration in water or sand. And this is the shape, this is the design of 111 that's coming through or vibrating through water, which is a 14 piece. It's a whole nother thing. I talk about it in my book, but it's so cool. It's so intertwined. The sacred geometry, it goes a lot further. I didn't mean to go off on a tangent there.
No, for our.
Oh no, that's good. And Michelle LeBaron brings up a good question. those people that maybe due to illness or an accident in their life where their brain gets damaged, does that have an impact on the study? Like, did the study take that into account, and does that get affected by the frequency?
Well, I didn't read any part in the study about anyone that was damaged of any kind. I think that really they took 30 healthy individuals and they hooked them up to the EEG machine, the brain activity machine, and then they piped in that 111 frequency. And what they saw is that the activity left the front of the brain and moved to the right side. And that's what, they wanted to know, what was the effect? Why were these ancient people deliberately creating these megalithic structures to resonate at this specific frequency? And it's because it was a worship place. It was a place of spiritual worship and connection. And so that place would help facilitate that type of connection. Just by being in the echo chamber, you would be being put into a more of a meditative state, which would allow you to connect and download, messages from the source. I mean, that's pretty much the reality of it.
Now, I can say, as far as for Michelle LeBaron's question about the brain damage, I also have brain damage. I landed 10 feet on my frontal lobe. So I lost a lot of my words.
Wow.
I lost 35-40% of my words whenever that happened. I actually heard my brain hit my skull, which, if anybody's had brain damage, they'll tell you that's a sound that you automatically know when your brain hits your skull. So I can say that the spirit chatter was light and just every once in a while, until I was recovering from that frontal lobe damage, which I never completely recovered.
Wow, interesting.
That the frontal lobe.
So it might have helped you connect better. I mean, that's really what I think you're saying. And so, yeah, I mean, we don't want to purposely turn off that permanently or anything, but based on an accident that you and maybe other people have happened or has happened to them, that might have, and so, sure, we've heard of things that people have had accidents and maybe near-death experiences, right, and they come back and they still kind of bring something back with them in a positive way, that they now have a heightened sense of something or an awakened ability.
Well, it only makes sense because we know medically and through studies that when you lose a part of your brain or a part of your body, something else will compensate. So if we're only using a small part of our brain, it only makes sense that people who have had brain damage, their brain will try to reroute the ability to have that, by using other parts.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my opinion on it. And that's what I noticed was the spirit chatter was just not very often before. And I was young. I was 24 years old when it happened. So I'm 47 now. So I've noticed. And then, I thought I had schizophrenia. I would pray that, let me get my kids raised before I crack. I didn't even know what spirit chatter was at the time. I mean, I knew I had always had odd things, I knew things or all of that. But I think that the car wreck actually did make something shift, which I was never very analytical or anything like that. I was always more on the creative side. But I did notice with the spirit chatter, it seemed to get from 25 to 32 was horrible. It was just torture trying to stay sane, even though that wasn't it at all. It was the spirit chatter.
That's interesting. Yeah. I have been I've been creative. I'm an artist and I do a lot of other things, but I also, not really getting into this until I was around 30, and then finding out a couple of years later that there was an ability coming about that I was able to, tune in. I'll just tell you right now that, I started picking up things when I was out there in the field, and I would find that I'd get a confirmation somehow, or someone would say something and they would validate what I just felt or got or just said or whatever. But nothing was more interesting than when I started working with Deborah and the way that she was teaching me. And the way that she was teaching me, she kind of just threw me like a little kid without swimmies on into the deep end. Because what she did was she said, okay, Josh, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to tell you a name. I'm not going to tell you a last name. I'm not going to tell you if they're dead or alive. I'm not going to tell you anything. I'm just going to say the first name only. And then I want you to do the exercises and techniques I taught you. And you're going to do that, and you're going to read that name for 30 minutes, and I'm not going to give you any feedback.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay. So, I mean, that's a little nerve wracking, because unless you just say, all right, screw it. And the biggest thing that she said was, you have to have fun with this. If you're going to be freaked out, creeped out, it's not going to work. So she said to do that. And so I just closed my eyes and I started doing what I do and looking. And I saw that there was, so she says the name Manny. She goes, Manny. And I start seeing this, young kid who's a mixed mixed nationality. I couldn't tell exactly what ethnicity he was, but I could see him riding a quad 4-wheeler in a desert. I saw this sombrero. I saw him playing a guitar. I saw like him smoking a joint at one point. I saw all these things, and all I could do was just for 25, 30 minutes, read them out. And she was writing them all down and not saying one word. And I don't know if what I'm saying, it really doesn't sound like I'm making any sense.
Right.
And then at the end, she goes, all right, just stop. She goes, all right, I've got enough information here. And I'm like, okay. And she goes, all right, so let me tell you. She goes, Manny is my son, and he's alive. He's my 16-year-old son. And she's like, and we live out in the desert. You didn't know that, but we live out in the desert, and he rides his 4-wheeler all the time. And on his wall, he's got a sombrero hanging on his wall, and he sits on his bed and he plays the guitar. And she's like, and his father is Filipino and I'm white, she said. Oh. And she says, I know he smokes cigarettes sometimes. She goes, I don't know if he's smoking joints yet, but she goes, he might be. And she goes, but I'm not too worried about it because I know he's a good kid. Right. And, he's got a beautiful family now. That was over 10 years ago. And, he's totally cool. But, and I got to meet him many years after that. But how crazy is that, because everything I said was accurate, but it all didn't make any sense in the moment when I was giving it. You know what I mean?
Is there a name for that when you're just describing a living person? Because
just being psychic.
Okay. Because I'm still in the name game. I know the things that can happen, but I still don't have proper names for everything. So I was just wondering what that is, because that happens a lot at restaurants and all of these things.
Yeah.
Spewing it out for people. I was always wondering if that had a name.
Well, I mean, you're using your, an intuitive ability. And the fact is that, there's psychics and then there's mediums, and not every psychic is a medium, but every medium is a psychic.
Okay.
So psychic is being able to just pick up a lot of information from, you can
everywhere.
Everywhere. Right. You can read the dead, but you may not be connecting with them per se in that moment. You just may be, told about someone who was dead, or you may just be picking up something. That doesn't mean that the deceased person is communicating with you yet.
Right.
And you can do that with someone alive. I do a lot of readings on people that are not asking to communicate with anyone that's alive. They just want to do something. Like they want to ask about a loved one who's alive. They want to ask about a job. They want to ask about something. I don't do that as much anymore. I did that for a long time, a while, whatever. But when I'm doing a mediumship reading, I will get some psychic stuff. But then, I'm getting direct communication. And some people will say, "Well, how do you know you're getting direct communication?" Well, I'm hearing them in a clairaudient sense. There's clairvoyant, you could see. Clairaudient, you could hear. Claircognizant is just knowing. Claircognizant is just knowing. Clairsentient is just feeling. So there's a couple of different clairs. There's more. There's the smelling one. I forgot the name for that one. That's what
that one. That one's odd.
Yeah. Some people are really good with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Joshua, before we run out of time, I'm really interested in what made you write your book and go and research that aspect of the paranormal.
Of what, the frequency stuff I was talking about?
The frequencies and the afterlife.
So I'm going to tell you this quick story real well. Okay, so the book was I wanted to write a book, but I knew how much of a big how big of a task that was. I had written scripts. I had worked in film production, so I knew. Oh, you see that little movement right there?
I
Did you
did.
see that? That wasn't a bug, by the way. I don't have I don't have any bugs in here. I'm just saying.
That
What
was
was the
an orb.
time code? Yeah, that was an orb. 45 something. 45:20.
9:45 our time.
Okay, but I'm on the time code. It says
Oh, I think
45:25, I think. I'm
45.
gonna have to go back and check that out because that was pretty cool. It went
Yeah.
like
It
Yeah, and
started
it appeared in the middle of the screen, not from a corner.
right. That was cool. That happens a
was-
lot. I have a lot of videos like that where I'm doing a live and I see this beautiful orb that will sometimes they'll do this. They'll come down and they'll make a sharp right turn and
dart
move
across.
and they'll dart across.
Yeah.
So whoever did that, thank you. That was cool. So, but the book was cool because I wanted to do it, but I wasn't really too gung ho about it. And then in my sessions, the guides kept saying, start your book. You have to start your book now. And I would kind of ignore their message. And then finally, they were just saying it in every session I was doing that I had to start the book. So I just had to do it. And it took me 2 years to do it. And there were things that I couldn't remember at first, or, there was stuff that I didn't want to put in because it was too personal. And I would get this nudging from them that, no, that has to be in there. That needs to be in there. This needs to be in there. So, there was really cool. I was given this design. Design, it's called the life piece.
It's a wooden circle with a center circle.
Yeah, well, I'm going to show you the
They
3D
can
version.
get that in the video. They can come and watch the video.
Yeah, you should check out the video because this is the 3D model and this is the 2D model.
Okay, now what is the use of this 3D model?
So the design came from, I believe, the big guy, the Big J. I call him the Big J, Jesus.
Right.
Okay, that's my guy. And I believe the design came from there. I don't, it is what it is. I can't deny that it is that. The design is really cool because I'll use the 2D version, and I hate to do this because I guess you're on radio, so I don't want to kind of screw this up, but it's a circle with 14 outer points and a middle dot in the middle. And so the middle dot represents God, and the 14 outer points represent like your outer qualities like fear, lust, anger, pride, jealousy, and so on. And there's a list for these 14 outer points. And this ring that goes around in those 14 outer points is kind of like the ring of fear. And so fear brings us out away from God, brings us to the ring of fear, and we can kind of live in those 14 outer points and just keep going round and round. But there's 14 intersections, and those 14 intersections are love, peace, joy, and they point us back to God. And it's an ascension. It's not just like a 2D. It's actually like it's a descension and an ascension, And so anyway, that design was so cool. And I never heard of that design. And I started carving these little pieces and giving them to people as gifts and not even telling them that, it came from Jesus. Like, I just wanted to give them that really cool design. And that's when I found a couple of years later that I saw this group called cymatics, and it was the study of vibration of sound through water and sand. And I saw this guy testing with the 111 frequency. And when he did a frozen sound wave where he was able to pipe the frequency into water and freeze it. So he could literally make an ice cube in a sense, or an ice, whatever. Yeah. And it had this shape in it.
So it's like a flat daisy with a lot of petals with points in between the daisy petals. So it would have 14 petals.
It's like a big pizza. It's like a pizza with 14, slices in a sense, in a way okay. And so when I started reading up on the 111, and that's when I found that study about how the 111 frequency specifically will help kind of turn off your brain and move it into the intuitive space of your brain. And I went, holy cow. So not only does this design have a real spiritual and amazing meaning of what was told to me, but it actually has a scientific meaning to it, that it's actually, so I put that in the book, and that was like a big thing that needed to be in there. And I think that that was something very special that I still have a lot of work to do with it, because I've only, I think, kind of scratched the surface on what this design means.
Well, the 3D did feel very spiritual, even through our thing. And it reminds me very much of like a religious dome of, that would be opening for the sky to be shown through, for the light to come through, for the moon to shine through. It just felt very like you need to be inside there to be able to absorb all of everything that was around it. It just felt like,
I'm glad that you felt that. There's also, I wanted to look up what the significance of a 14-point anything was. And when after I got the design and I was given that story through channeling, I looked up 14-point significance, and it says that in Bethlehem, where supposedly, where allegedly Jesus was born on the spot, right, they say that there's a 14-point star that marks that spot.
Oh, wow.
So that kind of blew my mind. You know what I mean? Right. Yeah, that really blew my mind. And so there was some more to it that I list in the book.
Right.
That
book, Finding Hope by Joshua Lewis.
Finding Hope in the Afterlife. Yeah, you can't see the book. Yeah, no. Finding Hope in the Afterlife.
Yeah. I bet it's a great book.
Let me see, can you read it?
And it shows Mr. Lewis illuminated on the front, which I think is appropriate for the topic of the book. Seems like a lot of illuminations going on in there.
Yeah.
So what's your take on the afterlife? Is that something like you feel like through your work you've been doing a lot of answering questions about the afterlife, or have you been kind of like, no, the afterlife's the afterlife, I'm just helping who's there?
No, I mean, people are asking for their loved ones all the time and asking questions about the afterlife. I don't think it's what people think it is. I think that it's not just a heaven or hell. I think hell, based on my research, sounds like it's a creation of someone's own fears and crap. So if someone was like a bad guy and did a lot of bad things, they can hide in darkness in the afterlife for a bit. They can hide in darkness, literally, but they can't escape eternity. Right. And so not that they're going to be in hell for eternity, because that would be stupid if someone lived only 70, 80 years, right, but then that earned them an eternity of hell. Right. So I think everything is transient. So at some point they would have to be getting out of there. But when they pay their dues, which is the suffering and pain that they caused, and that might be based on some of their biggest fears, whatever that would be. Exactly. And so there's that. There's also what people might think of purgatory as kind of like a middle ground, where it's not the highest ascended level yet, but it's still an okay place to be, where you can still live kind of out your afterlife until you've learned the rest of your soul's lessons, or either reincarnate, which I fully believe in, or you then could either then go up higher to where the light is, which is, I believe, heaven. They've talked about a castle, seeing a castle or a palace. I've had many spirits.
In the clouds recently, people are seeing them. The clouds. Have you seen that, Michael? Where they're actually showing videos of, it's just a quick little movement, but it's an actual castle in the clouds.
Yeah, you know what?
I've seen the people walking in the clouds. I've seen that too.
Yeah, I mean, just to talk about clouds for a second, I mean, I don't know if you could see this. Let's see, that's all reflected. Yeah, hold on. Yeah. But no, that's going to suck. You can't really see that. But anyway, there's a cross that appears in the cloud.
Oh, wow.
Right above my recorder.
Right.
How neat is that?
It's a cross as I'm talking about Jesus. So It just formed in the clouds, and that's pretty crazy. And then I captured what looks like a face. You're not gonna be able to see this, but anyway, it's in the book. But there's been a lot. So the spirit have talked about a palace, a castle. They've talked about living in houses. They've talked about eating food still, sleeping. They've talked about some work and have a job and do things. They talk about a number of different things that are very much like here in a sense.
That's great. Maybe you can share those pictures in the feed or something later on so they could see it.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
or they can read his book.
Are they in the book?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
I did. I put him in the book. Yeah.
But, you know, just in
No.
case someone's having financial problems, Michael, or something like that.
Well,
I would share him now if I could. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we definitely want y'all to pick out his book and read it and suggest it and share it and have discussions. Maybe go out to dinner with your friends and let's start book clubs again, and have discussions about that and start out with Joshua Lewis's book.
What's cool about the book is that this is what I feel like they gave me the idea for this. I don't know, the spirit, but I mean, it was like a lot of this stuff I've been documenting from day one on my YouTube channel. So the channel's been open 10 years and I've been posting. My first video was like around the same time I was doing my first investigations. Mm-hmm. And so you can see the progression. I mean, I've kind of grown up spiritually on my channel, and it's all just, I've kind of just wore my heart on my sleeve and kind of let it hang out in that sense. And so what's great about it is that when you're reading the book, and you read a story about something I did or went through or a session I did, there's always a footnote, and on the bottom we'll have a corresponding number to a playlist on my channel, and it will say watch video 5 now. Okay. And that video will correspond with what you just read. So, and that's throughout the whole book. So you can really be reading, see the footnote and say, okay, now I got to go watch this video, which will now show you what I just expanded on or wrote about in the book.
Wow, that's really clever. I really like that.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And just so you know, Joshua, I've been running your website, your YouTube, and your TikTok address as a ticker across the book.
Okay.
So
okay,
everyone's been able to, hopefully if they want to write it down, they can pause the screen and write it down if they want it. It's also in the description.
And it's just H.O.P.E Paranormal. If you go to YouTube and you search, H.O.P.E Paranormal, you'll find me. I've got about 137, thousand people on there following, and I've got about 406,000 on TikTok. So there's been some heavy traffic that's really flown, kind of through there and checked out some of the clips. And I share a lot of little snippets on TikTok, some of the best, so that's really cool.
Well, that's great. Looks like we have a all-female audience tonight here. So thank you guys for coming in. Pam, well, Susan, Art, yeah. And
you there?
Michelle. Okay. Mm-hmm. Thank you all for coming in tonight.
Yes,
thank you guys. Girls.
Thank you. And so my last question for you, Joshua, is what's your goal with the book, your TikTok, YouTube? What's your overall goal with like H.O.P.E and you personally?
Yeah, I mean, I gave up I was an entrepreneur. I gave up making, I made a lot of money in my time. I still would like to make some more, but at the same time, I really gave up kind of being as much of an entrepreneur and focusing on real estate and filmmaking and all this other stuff that I love to do still, but not the way that I love what I've been doing for the last decade. So my goal is really just to keep sharing this work, helping people connect. And really, I'm not like, I say this, I'm not just a channel. I have a channel. Like I am a medium and I have a book and I have an app and I hold live events and I do personal readings and sessions for people. So it's more about, and, I'm wanting to work more with institutes and facilities and other PhDs to help bring more awareness to the type of ITC that I'm doing, the spirit communication I'm doing, because there's a lot to be learned there. And so many people just look at this work and go, yeah, right, that's too good of a response. That's got to be fake. And I can't tell you how many times I got to say to people, everything I do is 100% real. Everything I do is transparent. I will show you I'll answer any questions you have. There's no part of it that's proprietary where I can't talk about it, or there's no part of my process that's hidden. There are other channels that are fake, and there are other people that do these fake things, and they muddy the waters for real people like myself and maybe yourself to do this kind of stuff. So that really sucks, And so I just want to continue to show its legitimacy of what I'm doing, so that maybe more people can start to believe in it,
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
I like that. And I read in your bio that you did create an app, and I forgot to mention it. And what was that?
Yeah.
Oh, I dropped my little. I'm sorry. I dropped.
Oh,
Tell us
I
about
thought
the
somebody
app.
clapped or something.
No,
I
Talking
wouldn't
about
worry
the app.
about that.
I'm sorry. I was.
Run through
But
the apps real fast about.
So which app did you make, and what does it do?
It's a free app. I mean, I have a paid version too, but there's a free section that's been downloaded hundreds of thousands of times. It's got 40,000 active users right now currently, and it's called the H.O.P.E Spirit Box app. Right now, we're working on an update because a lot of people are saying that it's not working on brand new devices, like on newer Androids and I think new iOS phones. So it needs an update. So that is happening. But I mean, it's a very simple app that, it doesn't have any words in it. It's got just human sound, just gibberish. And so it implements, you take you pick one of the sound banks, which might sound like a man or a woman, but you can listen to it to see your sound source, and you can see there's no words in it, or hear there's no words in it. And so it's got a little bit of echo reverb to it. And what you do is you hit record, you ask a question, you say, hello, who's here with me? And then you slide this little gate open, this little like slider open. And then the minute you slide it open, you want to close it. It's like open it and then close it. And that's going to it's going to let just a little bit of sound come through of gibberish. And it's the spirit's job to take that sound and form their own response with it. And then after you do that and the sound comes out, you hit stop record. And you got one question and one response. Now, you don't know maybe if you captured something, so you have to go back and listen. That's very important. People don't realize that. They think if they didn't hear it come out, or they didn't understand it when it came out, then they didn't get anything. And that's not how it works. You may hear it in real time. It may be very direct, like a yes or no, I'm here, I miss you. But sometimes they say other things that you kind of have to go back and listen to it a couple times before it clicks and go, oh, that's what they're saying, or whatever, So that's the app. It's very simple. And it's funny. A comment just popped up on YouTube, says, what is the app called? And that's just them asking on my YouTube channel. They don't know on this interview, but it's the H.O.P.E Spirit Box app.
Yeah.
Right. And
it's been a great show.
I have it, and I'm trying to get it to pop up on my screen so that I can show it, so people know that when they.
Here you go. He's got it.
There it is.
Yep.
Oh, so I see the pattern.
There you go. Yep. You got your. Yeah. So when you open the app, you've got like the splash screen of my channel and my book and all that other stuff. But if you touch this little lifeline thing at the bottom, that's going to turn on that's going to get the app going, the box going. And then you would pick, let me see if I can do this. It's such a pain to the reversed. So you pick a sound bank, and it's got a list of all these different banks to choose from.
Middle-aged female.
Right.
Male, so on.
So we'll pick middle-aged female. Hold on. So I'm going to pick middle-aged female, and then you would hit record, hit allow, and say, hello. Is anyone there? Does anyone want to say hi? Ooh.
Okay.
And then stop recording. Now, a little bit of sound came out. It was kind of low, but now the recording is saved. So it's got, and if you just touch the little recording tab on the bottom, it will take you to all your recordings.
Okay.
And you just touch the one that you just recorded and hit play. So you touch it and hit play, and it will play. And if and then when you think you got something, you could, side swipe it, and you could download it or rename it. And if you don't think you got anything, then you can always swipe to the other side and just delete it. But it's very simple. And I mean, I have people do this all the time. They record it on their own, something asking for their loved one, but they're still not good at hearing what's maybe coming out yet. So they'll side swipe it, and then they'll hit download, and you can directly email it to me. Or, you can, send it to someone else or whatever, but you can, a lot of people email it to me sometimes, and I'll listen, and I'll say, yeah, it's saying this, and I'll send it back to them, and they'll go, oh my God, I hear that now. Now, maybe people will say, well, that's the power of suggestion, that, you're telling them what they should hear, but the information is accurate.
Right.
Meaning that, a lot of times I'll say, oh, it says this name, and they'll be like, oh, that's my father, or that's this one, like it's so, or it's unmistakable. But to hear that kind of spirit chatter, I guess you could say, through the app, it takes a little bit of honing in that ability. So, sometimes it's just so direct. They'll say, yes, I'm here. And you're like, you don't need anyone to interpret that for you. You know what I mean? And those words are not in the app. There are no words.
Right.
There's not one word.
It seems to be a very friendly app. So I think no one should be affected by it. I think it's a very user-friendly app. So.
And it's not designed for evil and around spookiness and all that stuff. It's not. That's not what I deal with.
I'm very glad for the not spookiness, because I don't like scary things. Michael laughs at me all the time because he does all these haunted houses and stuff, and I just cringe. Cringe thinking about it.
I mean, my channel could be a lot bigger, I'm sure, if I was sharing a lot more of spooky, scary things, but that's not what I find when I'm doing what I do now. Early on, I did find a lot more that seemed to be scarier, but I think that was because of more of my lack of understanding. I'm not saying that demons don't exist. I'm sure that there's some level of there's evil. We know there's evil in this world. So why wouldn't there be evil also on the other side? But it's most of the time what I encounter as negative sometimes is just a negative person on the other side being a negative person.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Definitely. Well, we're at an hour and about 8 minutes.
Yeah.
We thank you for coming on. I know your time is valuable, and appreciate you hanging with us a little bit longer.
Great.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. It's my honor. I love, as you could tell, I can talk, and I have no problem talking about what I love. So it's never a problem,
I like how you call yourself the spiritual gangster.
Oh, you like that?
Oh, that's fun. I just got my Ghost Malone shirt the other day.
Oh, that's cool.
A little ghost with Post Malone's tattoos on its face.
That is super cool. I like that.
Pretty excited about that one.
I like that. That's so Ghost Malone. Did he? Is that his shirt?
No, it's just
someone else doing it
and stuff. Yeah,
that's so cool.
All over the internet, you can get it, but it's just
because what they said about how like his life kind of went to crap a little bit after him opening that Dybbuk thing with Zach and all that. You know what I mean? So he got thin and he kind of started drinking a little more. Whatever. But I think he's doing okay now. But you know what I mean? There was some weirdness.
If you go into this world and I was really vulnerable at first, I was really scared, and I got a lot of darkness because I think I was attracting it. But now that I'm of light, I don't even get the bad things.
That's what happens.
They don't come to me. I'm too bright.
I tell people that same thing. I say, listen, a lot of people, I'm in these afterlife groups on Facebook, and I'll show my app or I'll comment about something I'm doing, and they'll go, oh no, it's evil. There's so much evil. There's so much evil. And I'm going, well, yeah, if you're acting that way, you're going to pull in that. Okay. So I know that's kind of a chicken or the egg kind of thing. But the thing is, like, you kind of have to break that cycle
Yes.
by, fear could mean, F everything and run, or face everything and rise. You know what I mean? So it's either kind of like, you're going to face fear in one way, either running away from it or going at it. You know what I mean? And you don't have to be negative when you go at it, but you can be forceful and stern in a positive manner.
Like a good
Right.
parent.
Like, I like to tell people when they ask me, have you run across demons? And I go, here's my take on demons. I haven't run into any, but
Oh, I have.
when you're, someone that may, not be quick to get things, and people keep calling you dumb, what do you do in society? You start thinking of yourself as dumb. So when you walk into a building and say, man, this spirit's evil, this spirit's a demon, it's
Yeah.
probably just a bad attitude, but
Exactly right.
saying demon, he's going to start acting like a demon and saying, this is what you want, this is what I'll give you.
That's exactly right. And I'll tell you, if you're a negative a-hole and you're hanging out in an abandoned building,
Yeah,
and some little team comes in and there's a guy or a girl that's acting real scared and talking like you just talked, it would be no problem for that a-hole to just say, devil, demon, and do it through the box.
Beelzebub.
Yeah.
And now that person will go, did you hear that? That was him. It's just some guy probably that, doesn't want to be around anyone else in the afterlife and decides to look to scare people when he can,
Yeah.
And a lot of spirits are proclaimed as evil, but I think they're frustrated. We don't know how long they've sat there without anyone that can communicate with them. Imagine having your ears covered and your mouth taped, and you have to do that for who knows what their time frame is over there. They're going to be frustrated. They're going to be excited. They're going to grab.
I would say so.
They're going to
Yep.
talk loud. Give them time. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I hear you. Let's calm down. Let's talk like friends. Try to calm them down. Don't poke the bear.
I totally agree. And I just went to a Civil War museum out in out in Virginia, and some people were talking about that. I think Zach was there at one point, and they were saying like there's some nasty things there or whatever. And I walked around with a bunch of 20, 30 people, whatever it was, that were the attendees of my event, and I went from room to room with my app and my recorder. And I said, oh, I feel this woman, and I feel this child, and I feel this guy, and I feel this one. And I would just talk to them.
Yeah.
And all you heard was, thank you. This was nice. Thanks for talking to me. I'm grateful.
Yeah.
It was all a bunch of positive attitudes that I got.
Yeah. And I mean, why would there be? I mean, in that kind of area, why would there be all that anger? Everybody there was just trying to live. They were trying to survive,
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I agree.
Well, thank you.
As for Zach, my take on Zach is I don't like anyone that pokes and doesn't go in after stirring the bear, poking the bear, and then send somebody in. I think that is the worst thing to do. I'm like, everybody always says, oh, I agree. Like the show? I'm like, no, I don't watch it for this very reason. And
I'm going to stay out of the Zach conversation.
I will say, though, my buddy just said that because he watches Zach. I don't watch him anymore. I used to watch the first few seasons and whatever. But, I mean, the fact is there was one of my buddies watching it, and he said that he heard them. They were in some place, and one of the guys, not Zach, someone else that was with him said something like, hey, if you need to cross over, we can help you with that. Oh. Now, they didn't do it on camera.
Right.
But I would say that, or my buddy was saying that he felt like after the camera was off, that they might have, or that guy, maybe not Zach, but maybe that guy that was with them did some kind of prayer crossover work. So I'm hoping that they do. But a lot of these places, like one of the rules of the Civil War Museum, and they made you sign it, was no crossovers.
What?
Oh, and it's a lot of places that do that.
That's horrible because they're keeping
I know.
That's prison.
Well,
that's like for business. That's like a sweat camp or some kind of like,
Well, it's how
right?
they make their
Making those
living, and
persons.
so yeah.
But I mean, come on though, man. Do you honestly think though, I mean, I say, come on, man, to those people really, because it's like, do you think that spirit isn't still going to come there? I still think that they will. And I mean, I can't imagine telling someone, don't you dare say a prayer for a spirit here because I need them to be here next week when the large group comes here too. Like, think about, that's what you're saying if you're saying that, you know what I mean?
Right. And the other thing on that too is I think you'll agree, Joshua, is who's to say another spirit's not going to come over and say, hey guys, this light over here is what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Help them cross over. And it's like, what makes you think you have the authority to stop a spirit that's pure energy from doing anything?
Yeah, I still have said my prayers silently, so yeah.
And I
If
think
I get a call for help, I help. If otherwise, it's like, okay.
I think a lot of spirits are still thinking with their human brain. I don't think they've started thinking with their spirit brain yet. I think the ones that can do the things have learned what their spirit brain is.
I'd say that's very true. I mean, there's a lot of people that are on the other side that I think that are still living out their so-called lives in a sense, and there's still, there's a lot of husbands still hanging around their wives that are not trying to cross over because they still want to wait for their wives to be, or their spouses to be, or they're watching their kids grow up and they don't think that they can do that if they fully cross over. I mean, I speak to spirit that are still hanging around here, and I speak to spirit that have ascended and that are able to come back and communicate. But they talk about going back up. Right. And some say, I stay down here. I had one husband say, my place is here on earth.
Right.
He said through the box the other day. And then I had, the guides and a lot of other loved ones say that, we go up and we bring light from heaven. We bring light down, so that was really cool to hear that.
Yeah. Spirits are as individual as they were in skin as they are without skin.
Absolutely. That's exactly right.
I'm kind of curious, Joshua, your take too, and I know we're getting late, but I'm interested in like what we call the residual haunts, where they're going through their daily life, like not even aware of what's around.
I call those
I wonder, are those like parallel dimensions or other dimensions bleeding through, and that's why they don't see us? But
I mean, I can't claim to be an expert in I mean, there's still so much that I'm learning. What I can tell you is that I know there's residual energy, but as far as those echo haunts, and those people that or those spirit that are kind of just trapped in a loop.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you with that. I think that I think that there is that parallel universe or world that's just like a film layer laid right on over this. And I think that they're living out whatever it is, and they could stay there doing that for as long until they decide to awaken. See, that's the thing, is that there's free will. So I don't think it's just a shell. I mean, some people think that no spirit stays behind, that they think that every spirit just crosses over into the light, and that anything that you deal with here is all that echo crap. And I don't personally subscribe to that theory. So, I mean, I haven't gotten that as evidence yet. I don't, and so I don't feel that, but,
And I think anybody that deals completely like me, almost every decision I make is from a vibration. Like almost my gut is vibrational. And I think anybody that's like me can tell the difference between a spirit talking or an echo of a human or them on a loop. They all feel different. Every one of them has a different uniform feeling, and you kind of categorize, oh, well, this is that vibration and this one now.
I mean, that's interesting, Michelle, because I got to tell you, I don't know if I'm feeling that exactly like that. I mean, what I will say is, or I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm saying that I don't know if I can tune into that the way that you're talking. Maybe you have a more, a finer ability to attune to that. And that's interesting because I'm kind of like, I mean, I should have been from Missouri. I mean, because I'm still the show me kind of guy, and I still want to say, if I'm feeling something,
Yeah.
my go-to is to go to my equipment and ask
Right.
and see if I can pick up anything on my equipment. And so I'm still looking for a lot of evidence and proof. And what I find is that, anytime that I'm feeling something, if I go to my app or that I go to my DR60 voice recorder or one of my other recorders, sometimes I'm wrong and they'll say, no, that's not right. They will correct me through the box now. And that's pretty cool. That means I picked up something that was wrong.
Exactly.
And they were able to bypass me and correct it and get through the right information. So that's what I like. I like it more when they say, no, you're right, because that makes me feel a lot better about it.
I like that confirmation. But
yeah,
the thing that's so important about para-unity is the fact that you have a talent, I have a talent, others have talents that we both have. You know, it's so important for no one to say, well, he's wrong and she's right, or she's right.
Which happens a lot.
Yes, yes. I get those messages all the time. Well, how could you say that? That's not right. Well, how the hell do you know?
Oh, I'm attacked every day.
Yeah.
I'm attacked in ways that you have no idea. I mean, it's like,
I bet we could compare some stories.
Oh, man. I was friends with some people that, are like the pariahs of the field. And I mean, like I said, the majority of the people will react in a they'll say, that's bull crap. I mean, if you go watch some of my videos, I mean, you'll just be like, how is this even possible?
Yeah. I get attacked by Christians a lot.
Oh, yeah. Which is cool, because in my book, I have a whole chapter dedicated to the paranormal in the Bible.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of verses that people like to throw, at you, from all different types of different Old Testament and everything. And, I tell them a lot of times, 1 Corinthians 12, verse 4 through 11, which is Paul talking about all of these gifts that we get spiritually, to see future, to hear spirit, interpret spirit. It all comes from the same God, he says. And that's in the New Testament. So, I mean, these Christians, which I love Jesus Christ, but I'm not a right-wing Christian in that sense. Like, I'm not a radical Christian, I should say. I'm in the middle with certain, you know what I mean? And and they can go really off the deep end with me. And I hate that,
Yeah. And it amazed me, because I was at an event recently where they were not liking that we were calling ourselves Fear Fest. And I was like, really? It's Halloween,
Oh, no,
we're not promoting, making anyone afraid of anything. But I was talking with
I think Halloween's the exception, though. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Well, the gentleman comes up to me and he goes, well, you know what? In the end, I'm gonna find out either I'm right and you're wrong, or you're wrong and I was like, or the vice versa. And I was like, you do realize there's a third option to what you just said. He goes, no, I was like, yeah, there is. And he goes, what? I go, what if you or I is wrong,
or we're both right?
To go to the right choice and make the right choice.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh. And then
it's true. I mean, there's an old story. I mean, they call in this. There's an elephant that comes to the town, this village, and they have 4 blind guys come to try to describe what the elephant is. And so when the 4 blind men come to the elephant, each blind man goes to a different part of the elephant. So at the end they say, well, can you, to the first guy, can you describe what an elephant feels like? And he says, well, it's this long tube-like thing that, it's kind of rough and it kind of moved up and down, and it had like a he's describing the trunk, and the other one goes, well, no, it's this flat piece that's like, it's like a flap fan piece. And that one was feeling the ear. And the other one's like, well, no, it's this hard, smooth, pointed, jagged part. That's what the elephant looks like. And he goes, that's the tusk. So it's like we could all be just discovering and feeling different parts of the same source, and we are describing. It's like describe a or a human body. You can't just say it's a nose or a foot or a hand.
Exactly.
It's going to be a lot of different aspects to it that we don't see.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
Right. Well, thank you for coming on.
yeah, of course.
Thank you, Joshua.
Again, if you want to find any of his information, we do scroll on the bottom his website, his YouTube channel, and his TikTok. Is there anywhere else that people
No, I think that's it. I mean, HOPEparanormal.com, I should say, is my website, HOPEparanormal.com, and just and then the YouTube and the TikTok are the things to check out.
And there's a ton of stuff on YouTube. I went down the rabbit hole today.
Oh, it's long. Yeah.
Yeah.
I ask for well-known people, all kinds of things.
The Joshua Lewis rabbit hole.
It's
but it's really interesting. And you're very uniform, which I really enjoy, because I watch a lot of them and they're just like, they believe this one year and then they believe this the next year. And then yours was very good. You built on your structure.
Yes.
You learned, but you kept the same basic principle, which was enjoyable for me because I could skip around some podcasts and catch different, little parts of it. So that was
right.
Really nice, instead of, oh, well, he believed this 2 years ago. Well, now it's more popular for him to believe this.
Oh yeah, no, I know what you mean.
So it was very pleasant to go through your YouTube.
Thank you. That means a lot to me. Yeah. I think the grounding force for me has always been my higher power. And it's for me, it's Jesus Christ in a non-religious fashion, but that's been that shining light for me that continues to keep me on that narrow path, but still be able to explore different avenues or aspects. But he keeps me on the straight path.
Yeah.
Well, before we check out, I just want to ask and give you the opportunity to share, if there is anything, what's next for Joshua Lewis?
I'm just going to keep doing some interviews like this. I'm going to try to, I'm updating my app. I would eventually like to work on another book, but I have been so busy with doing sessions for people and readings. So I hope to do another live event and another conference like I did in Virginia at the Irvin Monroe conference, and hopefully work with other institutes, anyone that is willing and wanting to study my work and work with me on experiments, blind, cold experiments, whatever. I'm willing to go under the scrutiny of that, so that's kind of what I'm trying to do.
Very cool.
All right, very cool. So from all of us here at The Energy That Surrounds Us, thank you, Joshua, and thank you, audience, and everyone who was watching. So from our show to you, wherever you are in the world, have a blessed day, blessed afternoon, or a blessed evening.
Good night, guys.
Good night, everyone.
You have just listened to The Energy That Surrounds Us with your host, Michael Kopf. Be sure to tune in next week for our next episode.